Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we are back to Magic the Gathering Arena. Today is Friday, February 21st, almost jumped forward about 7 months there. Let's see. Let's re-roll this. And the animation did not show up. So we've got a few things to cover. I got a custom code for my pick um, in the World Championships, and I went and redeemed it, and it was supposed to give me a rare card and a sleeve, and as best as I can figure, it gave me a rare card and no, it gave me a rare card in the sleeve, and it was supposed to give me like a rare card in the pack. There also seems to be some talk going on that uh, you were supposed to get a pet, or some people were supposed to get a pet, and that didn't go through right, and they're gonna work on fixing that. Let's see. So with that, I don't have any packs to open. If we look at the collection, there's nothing here labeled as new even, and I didn't go into the collection, so I don't know how you even look at sleeves. Like, it's not on your profile. You have to go to your deck, you have to pick a deck, you have to edit a deck, and then you have to click over here to look at the sleeves. And so we have this new sleeve, which is, I guess, the Planeswalker symbol melting into a standing lantern type device. Maybe it's supposed to be a crown. Without even really trying, we've gotten a decent amount of sleeves, and I really have no interest in owning any more. But I do have an interest somewhat of owning these. So we were going to think about this. 3,000 gold, which would be 1,500 gold, to get these Nyx style skins for the lands, which one would hope you get forever. Seems like there's been an update here. Doesn't indicate taxes, and to change a payment method is now a button. That seems different. And do we have anything else that's new? This offer's still ending soon, and these character avatars still being their own thing. Yeah, I kind of question whether any of these sleeves are ever going to be on sale for gold. So you just have to roll in gyms to get those. And other sleeves I think are just going to be available for sale probably forever. And yeah, there's no concern there. So let's get back to the actual playing of the game. We have this rank draft Ravnica that we did, and we don't want to do a brawl. And then this Festival Fires of PURPHOROS, I guess. So if we went into this and spent 2,500 gold, you're I guess getting a decent deal in this. Because what this would do is give you a guaranteed 3 sleeves, assuming you spend the 2,500 gold and then win 3 times, which is a decent price for sleeves compared to what they're charging. But you are then making the fatal flaw in economics of saying, Well, just because you found something at the cheapest price that's ever been offered does not equate to it even then being a good deal. There's thousands upon probably millions of things that have been for sale that people just don't need. So, yeah. Do I want to waste 1,500 on these Nyx things? I guess we're never gonna find out unless we just go with it. So we're gonna get all of these, and that's gonna give me these kinds of planes with this cosmetic on top of them. I guess we just didn't even have those kinds of planes otherwise. They're being a little disingenuous here to say, here we're giving you a skin of this and this, and the slight difference is the color. We'll look at it more later, but they're also being disingenuous, saying that I didn't have any of this land. It's like as if the digital store is acting like a comic book store would, where they would just give you land almost certainly for free if you ask for it. Although they won't give you this Nyx stuff for free, because this is some of the best cards that people are getting in the Theros Beyond Death elements. Well, if it did nothing else, it that changed our storefront. Now here's the question. We've got these swamps. These are basic swamps. These are not the swamps I want to use. We have these. This card can't be crafted using wild cards. So is there no easier way to do this? This is kind of crazy that you're gonna have to just go into your deck, and I mean, in the real world that's true. Yeah, you would have to go into your deck and put in the new lands and take out the old lands, but there's gotta be a better system here, because I don't want to go through every single deck I've built and put in everything. And this swamp, like, there'd be some other way to do this. Like, there's gotta be some easier way. And then there is that other element to take from this, is this swamp that we have here is the skin or unskinned version. Card styles. Okay. Swamp. And so we could select what we have here, or you can select what you have here. It's a pretty similar card style. Yeah. Well, I mean, let's just select this for a second. Doesn't really do anything. And then things like Witch's Cottage. Sure, we could go with the worst card style in a lot of these, but they're definitely... Oh, there are some that could be purchased. And then there's some that we have. The truth of the matter is, Magic has been Wizards of the Coast has been ridiculous with these card styles. There's like 4 or 5 different versions of cards that they're printing. There's the standard style that's like this. Then there's some that are frameless that just are missing a frame here, and then the image is kind of stretched and blurred. There's some that are borderless, that look a little bit different. Like this probably is a frameless style if I was to guess, but I'm not sure because it's kind of hard to even tell the difference. Then there's also foil, but then there's also frameless foils, possibly those exist, and borderless foils. So they're just selling the same thing over and over again, on top of the fact that many cards are reprints of older cards anyways, or just new art on the same concept and same game mechanic. It screams of laziness, and it really doesn't work. The truth of the matter is that all cards should look kind of like this. There's this new art style makes Magic the Gathering feel a lot more modern and takes it another generation away from the way Magic cards looked in alpha. There just needs to always be a constant improvement on the art. That's why when you look at, say, the Hearthstone cards, they barely have any user interface or indications covering up the artwork, and for many players the artwork is the big sell. These are mini portraits of art that you can't really get anywhere else, that you're going to want to love and enjoy, that also you use in a card game. So let's see what we can do here. If I come over to card styles here, yeah, there's nothing you can do. Oh, this is dumb. This is real dumb. Right. Lands. Basic lands. We've got all of these. We can't do anything with these. Well, I guess I've learned my lesson. Wasted 1,500 gold just to have to go to every single deck and edit it, just so I can go here and then find the planes I want, to add those planes, and then find the swamps I want. You can kind of clearly figure out that this is going to be too much sorting through basic lands very quickly. Like, we're already at that point. And do that. And I'm gonna have to do that for every single deck that I want to continue to play, which inherently means that I absolutely am not willing to buy any more skins for lands. So those are going to be the way my lands look this whole time. What are we playing today, by the way? Black. Surprise, surprise. We very consistently end up playing black. Out for blood. We may need to do some tweaks as we play today also. I'm also going to throw it out there that anybody watching live, let me know in the chat if my audio cuts out, because once I start covering the video game news, I don't have a third monitor to monitor my own. There is a point here now where these fancy lands stand out a lot compared to the basic skins of a lot of these other cards. It is clearly designed to, now that I have a big enough difference between these fancy cards and these fancy cards that are borderless, these feel very different. But the lands, the mana generators, the basic lands, should have always been like this, because they never were going to have any description in them. They didn't since day one. That's mulligan. And so there was a lot of empty spaces in the boxes for no good reason. This is just like everything you'd want. So it does make a lot of sense that you would want to just have something like this from day one. And I guess these will stand out somewhat well. And this is not the skin I would want to use either for the swamp. Interesting. So now, on the third turn, we're going to be a little limited in our choices. Yeah. I tried something to fix my Blue Yeti issue, where it's just disconnecting and losing the audio. If it fixes it, great. If it doesn't, I could buy a new micro USB Type 2 or USB Type 2 mini connector, I think is what it is called, cord, and try to change the cord. I think I've tried to change the cord once before, and it kind of worked for a while. Maybe it didn't work at all. There is an Audio Technica handheld mic that is both XLR and USB. I think I might consider getting that if it comes down between that or just buying another Blue Yeti, considering how the Blue Yeti is about $100 and the Audio Technica handheld mic I've seen is also about $100. It's far too early to be spending yet another $100 to replace a microphone, but if it has to happen, it has to happen. That would probably change the audio somewhat, but not guaranteed in a bad way. It might change the audio in a good way. And having the extra ability to plug in the microphone either through USB or through an XLR connection opens up the doorway towards a potential other option in the future of buying like a small soundboard and plugging in the microphone into a soundboard. If I was ever going to try and have multiple people or multiple mic input sources, all of those would be improved. Having an XLR mic opens the door to that, whereas Blue Yeti is only USB, so if you were going to have multiple of them, you'd have to plug them into different ports on your computer, and I wouldn't be surprised if that doesn't work particularly well or at all, because there's this possibility, certainly, that you could only have one microphone source without using some weird system, some weird software. So yeah, it's not going great though, because I was 10 minutes short of doing a full episode on playing Batman Arkham Asylum, which has too many collectibles now, considering there's like 4 games in the series, and yeah, we know that the last game in the series was particularly buggy, and I'm just hoping that those bugs have been patched by now. But it has too many collectibles, and the number of the levels is... It's a decent number of levels, but each level is far too small. So you go through 4 or 5 rooms, on a floor, and that's about it, and maybe 2 hallways. It's really small. It doesn't have any loading, that's great, but it definitely doesn't feel like an open world, which that feeling gets compounded quite a lot when you have all these Riddler puzzles and trophies and things to collect, and you're finding collectibles within a meter of the next collectible. Things are just right next to each other, and it has this Metroidvania aspect to it that is a little bit arbitrary. So you're gonna have to kind of push through the. Oops, that was a mistake. Yeah, that was a big mistake, and he didn't catch me on that. If he was smart, he would have killed that guy to kill this. But whatever. Because of some of the collectibles being locked behind Metroidvania-esque abilities, and those Metroidvania-esque abilities unlocking in the linear story, you're going to have to play through, I would say, 3/4 of the game at minimum before you could actually have the why did I give me two food tokens? Oh, whatever. I guess that works. So now I have an extra food token. I forgot that well, I didn't even know that it gave you 2. I probably read it and then paid no attention whatsoever to that. And I could attack, and it's probably worth attacking because he's either gonna block or I'm gonna do more damage anyways. So yeah, you're gonna play through the linear part of the game, and then you're gonna have to run through the entire open world a second time to collect everything. The first ability you get is this explosive foam that it really does not feel like something that Batman would have in his utility belt as often as it's getting used in the game. And the entire game of Arkham City feels like it was begrudgingly turned into a Batman game and very possibly wasn't originally intended to be a Batman game at all, because there is, now it's going to be a problem, there is just so much video game stuff that revolves around Arkham Asylum that doesn't feel like something that a Batman writer would do. It's also not really a guess we might as well just sacrifice this and then go ahead and put that back on the field. Like there's this whole plot around something called the Titan Project that is playing up. There's a large number of doctors in Arkham Asylum that are characters that feel like they've just been made up. A large number of obscure references to characters that may have showed up just for one panel in one comic 40 years ago. To try and make it feel like a Batman game when really it's not. The fighting mechanic was particularly awful, and it's still particularly awful, even playing on easy. The fact that you kind of have to get either very high 8-hit combos before you can knock somebody out, or you have to counter somebody or stealth take down somebody. There's elements of a Metal Gear style game in it, but not enough to really make it feel like a Metal Gear style game. There's elements of a beat 'em up button masher brawler type game, but that's not polished enough. There's only, as far as I can tell, 2, maybe 3 skins that are used by the enemies. There's a lot of mix and matching of female doctors, a very high number of female psychologists in Arkham. There's weird concepts like Arkham having a child's wing that is referenced, and then you're in the hallway where you see drawing on the walls like there's a child's wing, but then that hallway connects you to like a surgery room or an observation room, and so as soon as you walk through the door of the hallway, you're just in another room that had been cut and pasted together. It is blatantly obvious that Arkham Asylum was an incredibly unfinished project, and then you have a whole bunch of DLC, and you have to hack the game if you want the PlayStation 3 exclusive DLC, which I probably will do. But the DLC that you get are these challenges that are outside the main game that maybe, just maybe, you get, you use those to, let's see, maybe you do the challenges outside the game, and then that lets you get more experience inside the main game in the storyline part. And if that is the case, that's going to be that would be very weird. But you also need as much experience as possible, because it's also, on top of being a beat-em-up brawler and a Metal Gear Solid style stealth game, it is also an RPG game where you get experience every time you either find a Riddler element or beat up somebody, and you desperately need all of those, as much experience as possible to unlock all these abilities, because at the very least the final fight that you do, I guess I can do this twice and speed this whole process up. There's nothing stopping me. So yeah, unless I'm just misremembering how difficult the final fight in the game is, it does come off, I'm fairly certain, as a particularly obnoxious and difficult fight, and you're gonna want all the combo fight game mechanics unlocked. And if you don't have all the fight game mechanics unlocked, you're as early as possible, then you're not going to be able to use them in the rest of the game. And the game, again, is too short and too linear to lock any of that content behind a RPG system. So yeah, there is also playing a 2009 Batman game, of which there had been a long run of kind of mediocre Super NES Genesis Batman games. There's like one that was good, but then there was a lot of Game Boy Batman games before that. Lego Batman came out a year before Batman Arkham Asylum, but they clearly weren't expecting too much from the Batman license, whereas it's WB Games, probably one of their best TV tie-in licenses that they have, so they should be pretty good. The other being the Shadow of Mordor, Lord of the Rings element. That should also have had more support and less microtransactions. And I've never played Arkham City, but I think Arkham City probably did fix a lot of the problems of the kind of low budget and just experimental feel of Arkham Asylum. But I have to kind of rush through Arkham Asylum, but you also have to get all the collectibles, otherwise you're going to be miserable and you're going to miss a lot of the abilities. So you can't really rush through the game as much as one might like to do it. Also though, and we really need Bolsa though, because I think we're perfectly safe here to just win. But there is also some ridiculousness in playing a 2009 Batman game in 2020, because none of the Batman story that's getting referenced has any relevancy. The DC and its many numerous reboots has taken out of canon the gray suit Batman that you're playing in Arkham City completely. The Harley Quinn you see is wearing a very old costume that doesn't really match. It's not like her original costume from the cartoon, which is where she's from. It's I don't even know what you call it. Twin tail ponytails with a frilly kind of pirate puffy shirt with a lot of cleavage showing, and kind of a corset on the outside, and the skirt, and knee-high or thigh-high striped stockings. If you saw it, you'd almost certainly recognize it, but it is definitely not the Harley Quinn that you would see now in any comics. And the Joker that you're seeing is much closer to a Batman 66 Joker than he is a Heath Ledger Joker. His motivations, his mannerisms, his character development is very different. Gotta just keep on playing this, and it should be fine. And then you have Barbara Gordon in the game as Oracle with her back broken and her in a wheelchair. You have Detective Gordon Detective Gordon pretty much is the same throughout all the runs, I would say. Let's see. Well, I don't think anything stops me from just doing this right now and winning. So take 2 of those at once. And use the oven to Cauldron Familiar. And it becomes pretty obvious why Cauldron Familiar is getting banned in some styles of gameplay. So yeah, you have a Riddler and Enigma. With all the DC reboots, and after personally trying to read all the New 52 series, which I would say over half of the New 52 rebooted DC comics were in some way involving Batman. So if anybody's gonna love them, it should be me. They don't tell a lot of interesting stories, and it's not really relevant because you just kind of know it's going to get rebooted after you figure out the whole scam that DC is, where they do reboots to get new viewers in, to lock them into 2 or 3 years of annual issue contracts, monthly releases of comic books, and once they start losing that initial burst, which they do faster and faster each time they reboot, they just decide to reboot again. Whereas Marvel, for its problems, at least has a decent ability to keep most of its stuff in canon and go forward with its story. The most recent DC reboot is trying to age up all the characters, kind of doing the exact opposite of the new 52, which aged down all the characters. So they definitely are swinging wildly and have no idea what they're doing or how they're gonna solve it. Arkham Asylum came out during the Hush storyline, which was a highly well-received series to my knowledge, but Hush as a bad guy has zero relevancy now. He's completely forgotten. So, and the new 52 Batman stuff was the Court of Owls for the most part, and while that was an interesting concept, it kind of is now being forgotten too, as just being irrelevant. There's just this weird vast difference between writing something like Watchmen, where you tell your story and that's it, and it's going to just stay as the story told, a standalone experience, or at least it was that case for Watchmen until a few years back when they So that's a prime example right there of my audio dropping out. Good news, good thing I caught it. But yeah, until recently the Watchmen series was just the Watchmen series, and that's all it should have ever been, and the TV series and the continuation of it didn't help it really any. And so, yeah, you just, if they let the writers tell their own tales, then moved on and told something different, and instead of trying to drag everything out into long, never finishing series, it would be a lot better. But that's not how, I guess, issueized is the right word, or episodic comic books work, and that is part of the major flaw with comic books. We have Josh on the chat saying, "Good day, you gorgeous beast, you." Hello, Josh. Sorry it took me so long to respond to you in chat, because I was going on a comic book rant, but yeah. So, in an effort to kind of age up my channel, it is definitely in part, and since I've played all the Lego Batman games already, moving on to playing Arkham Asylum and going through that series does make sense. I've played a imbalanced amount of Batman games on my channel already, and not really to my success in any way, because anytime the Batman theme plays, which I'm not sure it is actually, if we're going to play in Arkham Asylum, there's this problem there where the Warner Brothers content IDs and copyrights those videos. So back when I was making a few pennies on ad revenue on my YouTube channel, anytime the very popular Lego Batman videos got watched, I wasn't getting anything from them anyway. But according to the almost certainly lying YouTube demographics, it was all kids over 13 at the minimum watching those Lego Batman videos. And I can't imagine too many kids were having that much fun watching me play Lego Batman, though, because I'm always constantly criticizing and talking about the games, and it's hardly a no commentary gameplay. So yeah, but I guess I've understated in the accountability section where we are that I have actually been finally capable enough to start recording sitting upright, sitting in a chair long enough to start recording Batman. There is some sad news. My uploading software seems to be blocked at this point, as they're shifting people over to the YouTube Studio Beta new upload scheme. They've just blocked other softwares, or at least some of the other softwares, from being able to upload, which sucks, particularly when you consider, as far as I can tell, there still is zero benefit to using the new upload system. The new upload system makes it so that there, I believe, is less you can upload at one time. I think it limits you to like 5. Maybe they decided to undo that restriction. It takes longer or the same amount of time to upload videos, and it doesn't put all of the videos that are uploading in a row on the same page. So if I upload, even if I am only limited to 5 uploads at a time, which the old uploader is definitely not limiting me to that, but even if I was limited to 5, I could take those 5, and as they were uploading in the old uploader, I could type in their title, I could schedule their times, I could type in the description, I can type in the tags, I can adjust several other settings that I personally don't even use. So the fact that those aren't options available to me is pretty bad in the new one. There's still a way easier way to upload videos, because all it needs to be is just a default bit of information, for at least for episodic uploads from my channel. Like, all I should have to say really is, this is Magic Arena episode 25, and it goes, oh well, then we know that you release that every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I release the pre-recorded videos every weekday, and I'm about to change that anyways. But you could have it programmed default like that it should know what time and what days it releases. It should know what is the last episode to be uploaded, and just increments that last episode number. There's very basic things a computer can do without it really being even difficult for a computer to process that kind of information. And yet YouTube software doesn't allow for it, because it's just a badly designed website that they're forcing you, particularly as far as the YouTube beta, they're forcing everybody to move to, with it being unfinished and no better. Speaking of YouTube people being poop heads, for lack of a better term, there was allegedly some leaks that came out as far as people who review demonetized videos that are disputed, and there's like a 200-page documents that they're given as contractors that are only allowed to work up to 20 hours to be part-time contractors, and they're only given up to 5 minutes, I believe, to review any dispute, and that includes any references, any other videos as examples, and the footage that's being disputed in general. So almost certainly you're gonna have people cheating the system there, and they're not getting paid particularly well. I think it was about $14 an hour to do this. So yeah, somebody content ID claims or demonetized claims your video, and you dispute it, they're gonna spend at most 5 minutes looking at the entirety of your video. So they're never gonna get any nuance. They're never gonna get any reference. You've started to see on YouTubers, desperate people putting video things on the front of their video saying this is not intended for children under 18. Which there's a way to do that in YouTube anyways. So I guess they're trying to make a nuanced statement saying that their videos are for people under 18 but not under 13. I guess is what some of those are trying to imply. Otherwise, you just have to check the box that says your video should be age restricted and thus demonetized by default. Right, so I'm gonna go ahead and do this. And hope that is the right move. So yeah, it doesn't seem like YouTube's doing anything it should, which is nothing new, and that's basically not news at this point. On the other hand, I don't know how you really do deal with the automatic flagging of things that you think are child content, other than they probably should have just been extremely lazy and not automatically flagged videos at all for child content. It would have been... I don't think they were legally required to do that with their settlement with the FTC, to automatically scan and flag videos that might be directed towards children. I think they opted to do that when they could have just said, hey, we're just going to put in a new reporting flag, and people can flag these videos if they think it's child content. And you could certainly have tried to use a system where you say, here, FTC, you have a special web portal where you can flag videos as that you think are directed towards children. All the lawyers and internet lawyers who aren't really lawyers seem to assume that the FTC does not have enough money or actual authority to enforce in any kind of lawsuit the COPA rulings, unless they find a really prime example of somebody making something directed towards kids under 13. So the FTC is ironically getting more authority and more power by forcing YouTube to act as their enforcement arm than they would through their own U.S. government enforcement arm of the courts. Well, I think that's enough rambling for today. We are doing an average amount of new games that have come out for a Friday. So yeah. Let's go ahead and close this. And what else? Nothing else? Now that that guy's gone, I can just do this. I could have been actually attacking with this a while ago. There's a decent chance though he's got some kind of counter spells. So yeah, let's go through the news. This doesn't particularly need to be a super long stream. I'm not going to do another draft today. So just get the daily quest done and the daily challenges done, and then we'll be back on Monday. And over the weekend, I'm hoping to be ambitious and continue to play Batman games, and I may very well play Batman games all the way into October, assuming I have Arkham City, which I think I do. I might be missing Arkham Knight, or the third one, or the fourth one, but I'm fairly certain I have Arkham City, so I can play at least those two games back to back. And I imagine even playing the first game, I may not feel very motivated to play Arkham City back to back, because two open world concept games with a lot of collectibles, very much like Assassin's Creed, is asking a lot. There's a lot of what is in Arkham Asylum that feels like the first Assassin's Creed game, but I'm fairly certain it's not a shared code base, and I would say Arkham Asylum does it a lot worse. There is definite elements where if you're just walking normally with the left stick, Batman moves very slowly, very rigidly, standing upright. His 3D model is also ridiculous, a very comic book large chest design. But if you hold the A button, he'll start running, which is just like the wrong controls. He should just start running as you press forward and gain momentum. If you hold the left stick all the way down, he should start running, but he doesn't. But then if you're holding A to run and you jump from one platform, run towards the ledge of one platform where there is another platform in front of him, he'll jump automatically. But if he has no default jump, because default jump would be A, and that doesn't exist, so you're using a grappling hook to get up everywhere, which does feel somewhat Batman, but it also seems very silly that Batman literally has no ability to jump at all, and you're having to grapple hook from small ledge to small ledge. He will climb up the ledge of things if you hold A and walk to the ledge, if it's been pre-programmed as a ledge that you can climb up, which is another factor to consider, because there are definitely instances where they just don't want to allow you to go, which is ridiculous. He can't particularly fall to his death in open worlds. He can't particularly swim or fall in water, so it just resets you to like a checkpoint with a small cutscene. But there are a few places where you can do something that's game breaking and just get a actual game over out of nowhere, which is an old way of doing things by far, compared to modern games where you really aren't going to ever see a game over and a reset to the last checkpoint. It does have a thing in the menu to reset to the last checkpoint, which is an old style of thinking, because you kind of never need that option. If the game is glitched or something and you're stuck in a wall, you should be able to just Control-Alt-Delete your way out of a checkpoint, out of the game, and then the checkpoint would be reset anyways. So, or you could just exit out if you're not, if the game isn't locked up, or you could, if you just wanted to reset a checkpoint for another reason, you just like exit out. So that's kind of ridiculous and an unnecessary option in the menu. I will say that the software does, the Unreal Engine that they're using in their software does seem to still recognize and use my modern video cards fairly well, but the textures themselves are pretty bad. The camera has a weird smoothing, blurring effect when you zoom in. There actually is no way to adjust the zoom when you're in a zoomed in way, so you feel like you're zooming in if you hit the left stick while you're zoomed in, forward and back, but what you're actually doing is having the character actually walk forward. So you could literally be zoomed in looking at something, press left stick thinking you're trying to get a little bit of a better view of it, and walk your character off of a cliff and into a pit. It's just a lot of nagging little things that add up with Arkham Asylum, and it's weird to say that considering how highly regarded it was when it first came out. And sure, 11 years ago games weren't as demanding, but or weren't as good as they are now. We've made great strides in quality despite the large amount of garbage on Steam that comes out on a daily basis. But yeah, even if you look at Shadow of Mordor versus Arkham Asylum, Shadow of Mordor has an open world system with lots of mini missions and lots of collectibles and a much better RPG mechanic and a much longer and better story. So WB as a parent company and licensee of those two properties has majorly improved also. Moving on, we have a game on Steam here called The Wanderer VR, which looks like it's a archery VR game, and it's very colorful in the bow style, which you probably would never do because it's probably distracting. And there's nothing in the background. You're not shooting at targets, and you're not really shooting at animals as far as I can tell. So it's kind of missing a lot of features that you'd want. There probably is room for a VR archery game out there, but this is not the one. It is free to play, which is also incredibly cheap for a VR game. So I guess if you've already invested in VR, check out the Wanderer VR and see if it can catch your attention for 5 minutes. It'll just cost you time. Well, I think he destroyed my Bola Citadel. Or exiled my Bola Citadel. I lost my Bola Citadel there, and that was the thing I needed. I don't think I can do anything to recover this. Well, we are playing black cards. I guess there's something to be said about that, but that's about it. Gematsu has an article here. The Darius Cosmic Collection for the PS4 launches March 5th in Japan. I would venture to guess that Darius is a series of shoot-'em-up games, by the looks of them. Yeah, shmup games, shoot-'em-up games that kind of old. Genesis games, Famicom games, PC Engine games. Yeah. Sounds somewhat familiar, but certainly I'm not a fan of shoot-'em-up games, so that wouldn't be one I would want to play. Let's see, next we have a game on Steam called Roman's Christmas, and then a bunch of Asian letters. I think this is probably, well, I wasn't expecting furries. it looks like it's a Chinese furry kind of visual novel with some gambling elements too. Let's see, how much should I want for it? It's discounted to $9.89 and English and Chinese with 650 achievements, which makes it feel like an achievement game. It looks like it's possibly a gambling game too. It's rated very positively, but no, there's nothing there that interests me. This is taking a while to finish. Of course, it takes two to tango on that. Like, yeah, he stole my Bola Citadel over here. He just kept stealing my cards. The only thing I could do is maybe sacrifice a food, get my health back up, play Bola Citadel. But since he's constantly stealing my cards anyways, playing Bola Citadel's not gonna work anyways. This sucks. This sucks. The strategy's too good. And I'm not playing ranked right now. And that's important to take from this, is that I'm getting my butt handed to me playing just casual. And I kind of wish I wasn't. And I guess if you've hit that point, the solution is just to concede. Just save yourself the time. We don't need to have him jerk me around, which is what he's kind of doing. Stealing all my cards. Let's just move forward with life. So, Gamatsu has an article here. Death End Request 2 is coming to the West in 2020. The horror RPG sequel asks what happens when reality is consumed by darkness. This is one of the PlayStation games, PS4 games, that's also being censored for the West. So we still are getting these stories, and the developers and publishers of Japanese games are still feeling willing to state out loud that the new people in charge of, I like that, the new people in charge of Sony PlayStation are making different demands, and in part unclear demands as far as what they want in the games. At least to the extent that these games are getting made and then they're having to be censored. By the time the PlayStation 5 comes out, perhaps Sony will be so clear in its requirements that nobody will even begin to develop games that would cross that censorship line. Either way, it's censorship. It just, right now, we're having people that were years into the development of games having to change their games some more. And the changes for Death End's Request in particular is the standard pedantic anime censorship that we see every time we see this. It's some anime girl goes from wearing what would be a two-piece bikini amount of clothing to a two-piece bikini amount of clothing with an extra piece of fabric covering either slightly more, like 5% more of the buttocks, or covering a belly button, or they go from wearing what would be a two-piece bikini amount of clothing to wearing a two-piece bikini amount of clothing with enough fabric that is slightly see-through, covering up the midriff. I mean, I guess it would be ridiculous to make the opposite argument that to say that you would be happy if a costume went from a bikini style costume to a burqa style costume that covered all of them, or that would be even more drastic. I won't say it would be worse, because I as a free speech advocate, I have to say any censorship is equally bad, because if you start arguing that some censorship is good and some censorship is okay, that line will just get pushed and pushed and pushed. So yeah, it's always ridiculous amounts of changes that you can then mod back the original costume if you want, and if you really want, you can probably use a mod in most games to make the characters completely naked if you want. So yeah, and it does boil down to who does Sony PlayStation think their audience is, because I wouldn't really argue that the PlayStation 4 is highly played by teenagers or younger. Like, I'd say the average PlayStation 4 player is probably around 24-25 years old, and any large number of younger players are probably at the 19-18 level age. The vast majority of kids are going to either be playing on cell phones or playing Fortnite, Minecraft, things like that, or they're going to be playing on the Nintendo Switch. And then it becomes incredibly ironic, because you have games, Japanese games, that don't get censored on the Switch, but they do get censored on the PlayStation. And that, the kind of commitment to censorship is the thing that really would have me blacklist any new PlayStation console. Like, I know there will be exclusives. I know that I'll miss out on playing some games if I didn't buy a PlayStation, and I'm willing to take that risk, take that damage, or miss out. I wasn't planning on buying a new console anyways for either the Xbox or the PlayStation. I am thinking about getting a Switch, particularly for the Nintendo exclusives. But yeah, I think blacklisting Sony is probably the only reasonable thing to do at the moment. And some people could do that, and some people could not be willing to do that. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Counterfight 4, which is a cook, serve, delicious style game in VR. You're cooking food and then goofing around also in VR. It's $8.99 discounted. Requires VR, English, and Japanese. Problem here is it is just yet another game where you're doing somebody's job, so they get really boring really fast, and that's why they have to put in all these extra silly things you can do. And honestly, since there's so many people that probably are going to end up working at Starbucks as a potential permanent career, as better paying jobs become fewer and far between, people aren't really going to want to do that as their entertainment at home. I certainly wouldn't. As somebody who's never worked at a coffee shop, I definitely wouldn't want to virtualize working at a coffee shop for free. I think we already talked about this, but Magic Arena has had this thread from February 19th. We're aware of issues affecting the championship trophy pet disappearing for players' collections. I don't think I qualified to get that. They have identified the issue and are working on a fix. Players now can redeem the code and receive all the rewards. For players who previously redeemed the code and do not have the pet in their collection, will be deploying a separate fix as soon as possible. That was 21 hours ago. Players who previously redeemed their Find Your Champion code should now have the championship trophy in their collection. If you continue to experience issues, please contact support. So the big championship there, not being as successful as it could have been, considering how it should have been. Yeah, and that's just bad programming again, and bad testing, and it becomes, with every little mistake, with every little error, where Magic Arena is supposed to be showing off that they've got the programming chops, they know what they're doing, and that they can really serve a good quality product every day. Like, every time that doesn't happen, it becomes more questionable how much faith you should put into Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro for ever getting this to work right. So when that mobile game, if that mobile game is actually in development, and when it comes out, like, is it just going to be as buggy as the Windows game? That's not going to be great. Is it going to be way worse than the Windows PC game? That it should be their number one focus and their number one job is to get Magic Arena in a perfect state, as close to perfect as possible, so that there is a growing faith in Arena being the way to play Magic going forward, particularly when you have Theros Beyond Death not really doing hot, and them kind of being unable to come out and say or do anything to fix that. Because if they sped up the release of the next expansion, people would be super upset. If they admitted that they made a mistake with the previous, with Theros Beyond Death, people will be upset. There's kind of nothing you can do. So you have to they have to just stay silent, and they just need to kind of focus their attention. The one thing I guess they could start doing, and if I guess I was in charge, I would do this, is I'd probably introduce some kind of augmented reality teaser for the next expansion. Just try to build up as much hype for the next expansion, which the next expansion is like Core 2021. So I don't know how you build up hype around that. I guess you could tease and hype up the next expansion, and say that's the big one. You're gonna be shocked by how the next thing goes. There we go. So yeah, that's kind of the only thing I think you could do is, since it's a wild card. Is that one we have? Or did we just get another copy of it? Yeah. They also need to have a come to Jesus moment as far as just the pricing on these booster packs. Like, this is a real low point for them, for Wizards of the Coast. So they need to rethink the pricing, rethink the greediness, and hype up the next expansion, which or the next expansion. Yeah, the next one. Oh no. I guess the next expansion isn't the core 2020 set. It's something else. So I would guess the next one probably isn't going to start with T either. 2 expansions that start with the letter T. So yeah, I would start hyping up the next expansion and teasing it out if I was in charge of Wizards of the Coast. Move forward, think about the prices in the background, don't really address them publicly. Think about how you're going to and really focus on Arena. It would be very easy for them to simply say, going forward in the next expansion, all packs of any kind, whether they're booster packs or just regular packs, or collector's packs or whatever, any product that Magic sells, all those packs are going to come with some kind of Magic Arena code. It should be fairly easy in that case, and I would probably update the cards that come with the packs to also have QR codes on them. A QR code isn't going to help you when playing on PC, but assuming they are going to integrate mobile at some point, it would be incredibly helpful for people to go down to a comic book store or a game store and buy a whole bunch of packs of Magic, and as they open each pack, scan with their phone every code, and just without having to click an OK button or anything, it just scans the code, it gives you a reward, and then it goes back to scanning another code. So you can crack open packs very fast that way. Having to potentially type in all the codes is a little bit of a pain, and I could see myself installing, if I was ever to play Paper Magic, I could see myself installing the mobile version of Magic Arena just to buy Paper Magic cards and scan a QR code, and then potentially selling or throwing away the Paper Magic cards after that point, or at the very least never actually playing Magic Arena mobily. Personally, the mobile software is not going to really affect me too much because I have a dedicated gaming PC, so very rarely am I in a situation where I have enough free time to play a Magic game, and I'm not somewhere where I could just play it on my PC. The same is true for Hearthstone. I never really played the mobile version. Although it does help every now and then with second screen concepts if you're watching TV. Like, my computer's plugged into my TV, so if I want to watch TV and play Magic at the same time, the mobile app would be helpful in that case. I feel like I'm getting back to the scenario where I'm wearing out my voice now that I've gone back to actually pre-recording some footage. So let's move on. We have a game on Steam here called Defend Them, which looks like it's a low polygon asset flip game where you're kind of running around these islands fighting people or fighting something. It really does feel like it's just a bunch of random stuff merged together. Like, when I look at this and I cannot figure out what's happening. Is it a tower defense game or what? Like, it's early access, it's $8.99. Discounted. It's English only with a third-party EULA. Yeah. I can't figure out what Defend Them is, but I can definitely say it doesn't look interesting. But I guess that is a default part of being interesting, is you have to understand what it is. If I went to a museum and I saw and there was a trash can, and it turns out that trash can in the museum was actually a piece of modern art, but I didn't recognize that it was a piece of modern art. I wouldn't be interested in the trash can, obviously. So, yeah, in that same scenario, if I look at a game and I don't recognize it, can't figure out what it is, don't recognize it particularly as a game at all, I'm not going to be interested in it. Why can't I block with this guy? Yeah, I can block with this guy. This and this, and then no attacks. Next we have a game on Steam called Rolling Sky. We haven't been seeing a lot of these Unity Marvel games. There was quite a lot of them coming out a couple years ago. They're kind of all the same, although in all fairness this one looks like it might be slightly more polished. But it is combining an infinite runner and a frustration platformer on top of a Marvel game, which I guess that's probably what a lot of Marvel games are. Doesn't look like something I'd want to play. $10.99. It's kind of hard to relate to a game where you're playing as just a ball or Marvel, whatever. But I will say this does look like it is more thought through. There seems to be different levels where you're different kinds of balls. Yeah, it deserves some applause. It probably doesn't deserve $10.99 though, if I was to guess. This game, Seal Fledge, which is a dollar raising simulator allegedly, has come out, and TechRaptor has written about 2 articles, and it's out on Steam, so I'm gonna wait to talk about that until later. But I can already see the beginning of the end. We have probably about 30 articles to talk about, which is definitely not a lot. Pass here. Choose blocker here. Block. If they're not going to do anything, we'll activate that. And then we'll go ahead and decline that. So it goes in the graveyard. And then put this here. Attacks. I mean, I could attack with this if I wanted to. It wouldn't really hurt me any. Next we have a game on Steam called Guardians of the Ashes, which looks like a top-down twin-stick shooter with kind of a lack of polish. On top of the fact that it has anime girls to catch your attention in its tag sexual content. Take note that this area is a modern street, whereas this area is a dungeon area, and this area is more of a forested medieval area. This is more of a forested World of Warcraft style fantasy area. So you're all over the place. This is discounted to $2.09, English only with Japanese full audio. But yeah, that would definitely be a game I'd consider a low effort Japanese game, which I don't see a ton of those, but they do occasionally happen. And I'm just taking forever to respond to everything. The whole game flow in this needs adapting, needs improving. Okay, so we pass this time, we deflect that, we block that. Alright, then we could block, then we sacrifice this. We decline that. Then we play this. Okay. I need one more person. Like, if I would need a couple more people on the field, I guess. I could tap this guy and then I could attack. But it's probably easier just to do no attacks in any turn and just continue with the strategy we've got. Gamasutra has an interesting article here. Take-Two has formed a new internal studio to finish Kerbal Space Program 2. This is probably for the best. Apparently Star Theory Games was originally going to create Kerbal Space 2. Kerbal Project 2. Not. What was the actual company that owned Kerbal Space Program? Squid Squad or something like that. The main problem is that the money managers got in charge of the actual owners and the original creators of Kerbal Space Program 1, and they fired all the programmers, allegedly. According to the programmers, they fired all the programmers, and that opened up this unlikely scenario that they were actually going to be able to make a Kerbal Space Program 2. And in all fairness, they really jumped the gun on even declaring a Kerbal Space Program 2 to be in development, because Kerbal Space Program 1 wasn't really a finished product. Let's be honest here. There was a lack of an actual gameplay mechanic and a lack of a good tutorial mode. And the reason why Kerbal Space Program is so popular. Oops. Let's decline that one. Make that one. Resolve that. Resolve that. And then resolve that. So now I think we've got him. Now I think we got him. Don't have enough mana to cast that, unfortunately. Next, let's go ahead and attack here, because who cares? next turn I should just play this, because it would devastate him to lose all 3 of these guys anyways. So I should just sacrifice these 3, exile all of these to bring them back as nightmares, see if that works, and then just hit him in the face a couple times. So yeah, it's really questionable what Kerbal Space Program 2 would be. Can it be something that is way more accessible and reasonable to play? Or is it just going to be obscure and difficult and be a game designed only to catch the attention of people like Scott Manley and the other dozen real astronauts out there that were playing around with that software? There certainly is enough of a niche audience out there that so he does not create a nightmare of himself, unfortunately. This is gonna leave me with just a couple of health. Alright, well, I'm doomed. Like this. Sacrifice this, this, and this. Play this. Sacrifice this. Go ahead and sacrifice this right now. That's probably not the right thing to do, but whatever. And I think I could probably eat these other 2 foods and get my health back up. Can we bring back somebody of importance? Yeah, decent importance. We can go ahead and tap this guy. And attack. There we go. TechRaptor has an article here, Double Dragon and Kino-kun Retro Brawler Bundle Review. This, I guess, is a bunch of old games that I guess came to the West because TechRaptor tends not to review Eastern only games. I gave it a 7.0, which I'm not surprised because why wouldn't? Why would you really want to play old NES games that aren't like the top of the tier NES games? It really is more of an argument for like those old games being free in public domain more than anything, is that they really don't have any value or very little value and really shouldn't be still available for sale. That they've made their profit as a product. Okay. So I can't tag. So what I'm gonna do instead is do no attacks in the turn. Pass here, block here, click block, activate this, submit this. I need a scripting language for as complicated as this turns into. While we're at it, let's just take some food. Take that. And at this point, Attack here, here, and here, and we should win. But that's our hard-fought victory. Another card. Getting little bits of cards here and there. I wanna edit my deck. How do we double click to edit, double click to open? I don't like this card. It's just a little bit not in my wheelhouse. It complicates things, it makes it more difficult. So I'm taking it out and bringing it back. You know what? Let's see how many blight beetles we can. We have another blight beetle, so that wouldn't be too bad. Kind of don't like this card either. It's probably should just be removed. Could I just craft this? What would this cost? 1, 2. What would it cost to get to 4? Two wild cards. 2 uncommon wild cards. Sure. We'll just go crazy with it. And then we'll apply styles on the swamps. Then we'll hit done. And that simplifies it a little bit more. Simplifies the gameplay. Even though I am playing a combo strategy deck, I still want to kind of simplify the options. Next we have a game on Steam called Zombie Towns, which clearly is just a Western shooter asset flip game with a low effort name and no visual polish. It's 99 cents, English only. I don't think I can keep all of those cards. I need a mulligan. Let's see. Let's get rid of this. And then you play this. And then you play this. Put that on the field. Gamatsu has an article here for the PC, PS4, and Xbox One. A gothic, I guess is how that's supposed to be written. I don't think there's something called Got Chick. Tactical RPG called Other Side has been announced. Due out sometime in the summer. We have a teaser trailer of what this looks like. He has kind of a red and black and white look to it. Feels a lot like Limbo, but I don't know what kind of game this really is, or this really will be. Like, this announcement teaser trailer could be just about anything. It could be a Devil May Cry style game, which it would feel like it would fit fairly nicely in there. It could be a Bayonetta style game. That is an interesting idea, certainly, to do something like Bayonetta without also having the slight problems of Bayonetta, which is mostly that Bayonetta 2 was funded by Nintendo and is possibly coming out at some point for it's possible that it's coming out sometime for PC and other consoles, but not guaranteed. There's also Bayonetta's just kind of old. Like they just re-released it for the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4, and it can do basically 1080p, and that's it. It's not going to hit higher textures. It's not going to it's going to be smoother. It's going to not have any frame dropping, which is nice, but we've got to do a whole combo here, and I'm hoping this works. If we can pull this off before I have to start my turn again. It's moving very slowly. Moving incredibly slowly here. Like you can really just win the game with a couple ovens or one oven and a familiar. You've got nothing else that you can do. I'm gonna wreck him if I can get a few more mana generators. If I can get up to 6. Got 4 now. Yeah. A news story, no tie-in, something that looks interesting. Always appreciated. Also, nice to see a new announcement, and nice to see we're getting finally out of the first quarter slump of video games, where we weren't really getting announcements or games coming out at all. Alright, so now we need to block this like that, and then sacrifice this like that. And then you can't bring it back and block the other guy, unfortunately. I'd need 2 of them to do that. That would be also doable. At the current rate, though, it is going to take 10 turns to work them down all the way to 0. Let's see. Do I want to play this right now? Do I want to wait? I think I'll wait. Next we have an article here from Gamatsu for the PlayStation 4 and Switch. Sisters Royale, 5 Sisters Under Fire has been announced as far as physical editions have been announced. You can pre-orders are open February 23rd. This may not be one of those games that comes to the West. It seems like it's a collection of anime, one assumes sisters, that in some kind of dungeon crawler, if I was to guess. Let's see. It's first new game from Alpha Systems, brought to you the shoot 'em up Castle of Shikigami 3 in the Castle of Shikigami series. It's a bullet hell shooter, which yeah, shoot 'em up, bullet hell shoot 'em up, which I guess would have been a good guess too. Certainly, anime girls in shoot 'em up games, pretty common. Yeah, it feels like a sleepy Friday. Feels like I'm going slow. Pass. Okay, he's just not gonna attack. You know what? If this guy is past his point, then let's sacrifice this. Bring this back to the field. And then I'm gonna sacrifice this. And bring that to the field so I can maybe do some more damage. There we go. Light Beetle. Ruining his strategy. And doing this to bring back this card. Yes, I want to bring it back. Man, this is just moving really, really slow. Yeah, I guess maybe I should just double check to make sure I'm not running out of hard drive space. Yeah, I have 100 gigabytes free. My server, on the other hand, just keeps, like, I think I've ruined it pretty miserably. And I really need to format and reinstall everything and just start over from scratch. One of the things I've recognized is the RAID ZFS, RAID Z3 in ZFS raids. You kinda only want 6 discs in a RAID Z3 at most. There's no extra benefit from adding a 7th disc. It doesn't add one more disc that can fail, or an 8th disc, or 9th disc, or 10th disc. What you want to do is effectively, and you can do this in ZFS, you really can't do it in any other kind of file format system, is you make a RAID Z3 with 6 discs, then you make another RAID Z3 with 6 discs, then you make another RAID Z with 6 discs, and if you can squeeze like 10 RAID Z3s with 6 discs in it, you can get up to a petabyte potentially, which is what Linus Tech Tips did yesterday. Of course, he's getting all of that hardware for free as sponsored content. Let's face it, or at a significantly reduced price. So that would have actually worked pretty well, but unless I am going to get to a point where I have to just delete all my data and start over completely from scratch, there's no way to destroy my current RAID to rebuild into 2, maybe 3 RAIDs, which is about as much as I could probably do. Like, I can only hold 16, maybe 18 discs in my hardware anyways. So, yeah. Here's what we need to do. We need to block something that will die, and block something that will die, like this. And we want them to really die. So I'm just gonna resolve, and he's returning this to my hand, which is perfectly fine by me. Okay, so now what I need to do, see if I can bring this guy back to the field. and then sacrifice it like with the witch's oven and bring it around, which does seem doable. And this is excellent that this is letting me bring it back to the field. My only real problem is I need 2 more. Yeah, I need 2 more things before I can play this. And I need to kill one of these guys. A lot more complicated than just hoping for Bola Citadel, which is what I was doing before. Play this, and I guess we'll just go ahead and put this on the field too. Gonna do no attacks. Gamatsu has an article here. Square Enix announces its PAX East 2020 lineup events. Final Fantasy VII Remake, Final Fantasy 14 Online, and Outriders seem to be the things that they'll be showing off. We are in this weird position where a lot of things are getting canceled for events like PAX East. And we haven't heard too many cancellations of E3 yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if we start to hear some of that because of the coronavirus also. So some people are making announcements for things, some people are canceling things. It would be kind of crazy, but it would be kind of a nice excuse too to cancel all of E3, but the ESW can't. The ESA can't get away with that. They wouldn't have enough money to continue running if E3 got canceled for 1 year, as far as I can figure. But I could see this E3 being hugely under visited with barely anybody showing up. Okay, resolve. Return that to my hand again. It's like doing everything I want him to do. I'm not even recognizing it. This is gonna work out great. So you block here, you block here, and nope, you block here, and you block here. Then in this case, we sacrifice that. Yeah, we gotta sacrifice that one. Otherwise, we won't get food. And at that point, he decided just to quit. Which, in all fairness, he should have done several turns ago. Save us all the time. We are getting victories, though. I can't deny that. We're getting enough victories to even see if we can actually move up in ranked a little bit. Gamatsu has an article here for the PS4. The romance visual novels Hutch, Kiss, Kiss Bell, and Kiss Auto are coming via the Kiss trilogy on June 28th, 5th in Japan. And see, this is kind of silly that we're having censorship for games that come to the West on the PS4, and yet you've got a romance visual novel trilogy still selling just fine on the PS4 in Japan, with bikini-laden, large-chested anime girls. I don't know if this is supposed to be a Yuri visual novels, or girl on girl romance, or if it's just a standard straight romance. I think they would call it a Yuri game if it wasn't. If it was, so more than likely you play as a male character who's just unseen and get your choice, or maybe you don't have to even pick between the girls on the cover. So, alright. Same old strategy. It's gonna be so incredibly boring. I'm gonna have to at some point duplicate a deck, have a fun deck, and have a win deck, and try and alternate between the two. This is gonna get incredibly dull. And honestly, if I see the Cauldron Familiar and the Witch's Oven on the second turn, I think I would consider just surrendering, because it's powerful enough that it's not going to always work. Now, I guess in this case this one has flying, so I might as well just sacrifice this and bring it back. Am I sure? Yes. Yeah. Why is it asking me, am I sure? Like, what is different now with the game is treating that card differently? It's ridiculous. It's really just straight up insanity sometimes. Next we have a game on Steam here called Swordbreaker Back to the Castle, which looks like it might be something. Maybe. It's a little bit of polish here. I mean, it's certainly no Witcher 3 by any means. Is this a single player game though? $7.19, single player, only English and Russian, which is slightly suspicious. 64% positive. Let's see if we can get a review. No. I'm gonna be generous on this one and put it on the follow list. It's probably just an asset flip adventure game, but even at that, an asset flip adventure game is not something that you typically see. A Witcher clone, for as successful as The Witcher 3 was, there's actually very few Witcher 3 attempts or clones of Witcher 3, because what made The Witcher 3 successful was the fact that it was this huge open world game with a very long story, and those are two things that most people don't want to try and make if they're trying to make a game on the cheap. And asset flips often try to make their games look like they're huge open world experiences, but they really aren't. I missed out on an opportunity to use this, so I'm going to use this now to avoid doing that again. Just going to be a mistake. I'm sure. We're going to attack here with that one. So he's either gotta let me attack, or he kills me and then I get a flying creature. Next we have a game on Steam called Ultimate Zombie Defense, which frankly any game with zombie in the name is probably a low effort asset flip game. This looks like this one's a top-down twin stick shooter in dark, with dark screenshot syndrome. Seems like there really is just like one street area, and you can build some traps and some fences and different weapons against them. Basically a tower defense game. $3.99, a bunch of languages. Yeah. If I wanted to play a tower defense game where I was fighting zombies, it is almost like a hardcore Plants vs. Zombies idea. But the screenshots are so off-putting, and it's just so dark. Yeah, I don't know how you get to that point. Well, I guess I could attack with this, but that would be a mistake. Attack with those two. And then, yeah. Honestly, a decent chance I can win with both Citadel in the next turn. Speaking of The Witcher 3, Gamma Sutra has an article. The Witcher 3 earns $50 million on Steam in the 18 months to top revenue tiers, which is to let's see. Which I guess what they mean by hop revenue tiers means they're getting a bigger cut. So he gets an 80% cut compared to the basic 30% rate offered by the marketplace. Interesting. I mean, they've really written the numbers there to confuse the issue in a weird way, because what they're saying is it was a 30% cut that Steam was taking by default. They made over $50 million, and Steam's rules says if you've made over $50 million, then we'll give you we'll only take Steam Valve will only take a 20% cut. But they've written it in a crazy way. Alright, one victory. The bigger news there is not that they're gonna make a little bit more on their future sales on Witcher 3, which arguably I'm not sure how many more people don't own Witcher 3 on Steam, with myself being a unique exclusion. I guess there probably are a decent number of people that got Witcher 3 free or got it on Good Old Games for some reason, and would like to transfer it over to get it a second time on Steam. That would be my case. They're saying it has continued strong sales, so okay, they'll make a little bit more money that they need, I suppose, to continue the development of Cyberpunk 2077, which was delayed. Let's go ahead and play with this one since we don't actually have the other one on hand right now. I guess you have to play it a little bit differently in that case. So yeah, The Witcher 3 is still remaining very successful. It would be kind of hard to justify going back and playing that game, but I certainly can't complain if people do. No, I actually wouldn't have any problem going back and playing The Witcher 3 because I could just transfer the save files over some way and do the DLC, which I haven't done yet. So that would actually be pretty easy. This, and this, TechRaptor has an article here. Eli Roth is set to direct the Borderlands movie. Apparently this is the face of Eli Roth. And here we have characters from Borderlands 2. Not Borderlands 1. And not really. I mean, some of these characters may be from Borderlands 3 too, but or 3 also. More information is coming at PAX East. Let's see. The thing I'd really like to see is a list of Eli Roth games or movies. Let's see. Quite long career, including 15 as director. He worked on Hostel Part 2, Cabin Fever, 2018's Death Wish. He also worked on The Green Inferno and The House with a Clock in Its Walls. None of those are really great. That's not really a great listing of movies. And yeah, he got like a thanks from Inglourious Bastards. Yeah, he was the producer of several stories, several things here. TV series, Baywatch. So he's mostly done horror shows and horror stuff, which I don't see how. I don't see how the going in kind of a horror direction makes the most amount of sense for the Borderlands series. It seems like a weird direction to go. He did work on a video game as a producer called The Green Inferno Survival, which was a tie-in, I guess, to The Green Inferno. He made a fake trailer segment in Grindhouse. He also acted in 32 Things, which probably are just stand-in characters. He's putting himself in things. As far as directing, though, and not producing, because he's not going to be the producer, so is Randy Pitchford going to be the producer? Really? Somebody else getting in bed with Randy Pitchford is just going to be a nightmare in the first place. I assume Knock Knock is not the game named Knock Knock. Check that. Nope, it is not the game Knock Knock. So yeah, I don't really take a lot from that. I don't know what story you tell in 2 hours of the Borderlands story. If it is supposed to just be Borderlands 1, then I don't even know who the main bad guy in Borderlands 1 was. It wasn't Handsome Jack. It was like General Steel, that very forgettable female character that got stabbed by the giant monster at the end of Borderlands 1. And everything up to Borderlands 1 otherwise was mostly just fighting against a bunch of Crimson Raiders. So yeah, I don't think there's much of a story there. You're basically just going to make a action movie with the art aesthetic of Borderlands, which probably won't even look much like Borderlands once that cartoon art aesthetic is taken off, unless they're going to rotoscope and animate on top of every single character to make them look like characters from Borderlands. It is going to very quickly take a dark and gritty turn with people who have a whole bunch of tattoos and a whole bunch of scars, that only the fact that there was a silly story and a silly animation style Borderlands eased the tension there quite a bit. Is Claptrap going to show up in a Borderlands movie? Probably. Only as an Easter egg, if I was to guess, because they should be kind of phasing out Claptrap anyways, and with the original voice actor of Claptrap not really being involved with Borderlands anymore, he probably is going to get snubbed. A lot of the other characters, maybe Borderlands 3 gave a lot more characterization to a lot of the characters, so you're going to have a kind of odd retroactive personalities put into some of the characters, like the Firehawk in particular, and Zero's not going to have any characters, certainly. I don't think you can have a movie, honestly, even for Vault Hunter, so you're going to have to boil that down to take your pick, one of those persons, and it's probably going to be the Firehawk, if I was to guess. So yeah, I don't know what you do there. Also, once you start boiling down Borderlands into a movie, it becomes just a boss rush, or you skip over all the bosses and then it becomes a very simplistic main storyline quest of getting the vault keys and opening the vault. So yeah, the first 3/4 of the movie will be getting vault keys, and then the last quarter of the movie will be a potentially 20-minute long fight with the monster in the vault. Unless they do something weird and bring in Handsome Jack retroactively and earlier than he should be in the story. And if you have to kind of think about what the sequel would be in this scenario, and the sequel kind of has to be Handsome Jack again. So you have to then either tell 3 more movies worth of story for Borderlands 2, Borderlands 3, and Borderlands the pre-sequel, or you have to boil that all down. And you're certainly not going to touch upon any of the DLC. You're going to have to eliminate a lot of characters. Tiny Tina very possibly going to show up for just a brief Easter egg, and that's it. Mr. Shank probably not showing up in the movie. And it's definitely very questionable who's going to watch a Borderlands movie, and what are you going to get out of watching a Borderlands movie? Is it just going to make you feel like you want to go back and play Borderlands 1 again? That kind of doesn't work, because then people would stop playing Borderlands 3. Maybe people have already stopped playing Borderlands 3, but it's not going to be helpful, certainly. There's enough Borderlands video games out there to keep everyone satisfied. Expanding into a movie just because it's successful is not a good idea. In fact, for the Borderlands series, it is the worst example of doing that. At least in the cases of the Tomb Raider series. Tomb Raider is a simplistic platforming adventure game, please. It made sense to turn that into a movie. The Resident Evil series getting turned into zombie movies makes a lot of sense, because basically the Resident Evil series is just a zombie movie in video game form. It makes a lot less sense once you start going down that path with Borderlands. Yep, they're gonna have to do something really weird and really different. I guess maybe you could set a story in the world of Pandora with not really any of the characters, and it was a very different style of story, but I don't know. At a certain point, that's going to feel like the Transformer movies. Yeah, this is almost doomed to not being a good movie series. And yeah, Eli Roth, indicator as a producer, will make it a horror series. I don't know how you make a horror series around Borderlands and satisfy Borderlands fans. Moving on, Gamma Sutra has an article here. Get a job. Insomniac Games is hiring a lead level designer for Burbank, California. Let's try and wrap up this stuff because we are making slow progress today. We have Quantum League Beta out on Steam, which looks like a Friday Night Fights or whatever that player versus player game was. This is free, English only, online PvP with no microtransactions, so I don't know how they're going to make money. I guess it's a free open beta and probably won't, probably will cost money in the long run if it succeeds. There's some nice animation here. I guess maybe this would be something you might think about doing instead of Overwatch if you just want to boycott Activision Blizzard, although Counter-Strike Go probably is a better bet if you are just trying to avoid Blizzard. Oops. Well, I lost there. This Quantum League and the idea of being in time loops doesn't make a lot of sense. Because if it seems like, as I'm watching this nice animation for Quantum League, it seems like they're just shooting each other over and over again and dying and starting all over again. In a time paradox shooter concept is going to work about as well as Quantum Break did and the time manipulation abilities before. It feels like the time manipulation elements are just a contrivance to explain multiple rounds. And one of the things I guess to mention here is it really seems like it is just player versus player, like 1v1, doing something rather different, and it seems like there's probably just a male skin and a female skin, and that's it. So yeah, if that beta in that game became super popular, it might succeed. I would venture to guess it isn't going to be popular enough to gain a player base like most player versus player games. It probably doesn't have enough funding behind it and enough advertising to bring people over. And I'm not sure there's too many people that really want an Overwatch alternative. Overwatch was pretty popular when it first came out, but then it hit a high saturation point pretty quickly. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's just been losing players month on month for the past year. Moving on, Gamma Sutra has an article here for GDC 2020 plans for a successful and safe event. I'm not going to bother to read this since I'm not going to GDC, but it's probably worth reading if you were going to GDC. Decent chance that what they call safe is emotionally safe more than anything else, and it's talking about rules of how you have to act in like flaming SJW stuff, if I was to guess, more than just, you know, don't bring weapons to the event. Most of these events perfectly fine, and the only thing that's a big risk and people are concerned about is getting sick from the coronavirus or otherwise, and people have always been at high risk of getting sick from events. But yeah, we really don't have made up stories or even real stories of people going to events and things happening. So the level of security that these events tend to have seem to be fine, and the rules and regulations seem to be fine. Since everybody is there to have a fun time, that I think is a big factor towards that. Next we have a game on Steam called Creepy Tale, which looks to me like it's a point-and-click adventure with a brownish, darkish art style to it. It's $3.99, which is cheap enough for me to put it on the follow list. A bunch of languages, 13 achievements. It's probably a very short point-and-click adventure. If I was to guess, it's probably not going to get into the 5-hour range. I imagine 2, maybe 3 hours. But yeah, I'll put it on the follow list and see if people like it. I am a sucker for point-and-click adventures. Citadel. This has my ability removed, so I have to tap it to remove a task counter. And that sucks. And I think that means the only thing I can do is this. But I don't think that's gonna matter. So we tap this several times to remove the task counters. Put this on the field, this on the field, this on the field, this on the field, this on the field. And we've won. Just need to do that. And tap this. And I guess I could probably sacrifice this guy, but I don't think it would matter. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 10. We're 3 short. That's all it's gonna take. 3 more characters on the field, or getting rid of the task counter. Or just doing 3 damage would also work. So he's double playing pacifism. He's got only 2 cards left. Game of Sutra has an article here. Kit Fox Victoria Tran aims to kill toxic game communities with kindness. Is she from one of the esports teams? Let's see. Victoria Tran, Kit Fox Games Communication Director. She's going to be at GDC giving a speech, so this is just an advertisement. Oh, is she the one making Boyfriend Simulator that's now like 2 years into development and way overhyped? I think if you did a deep evaluation, you can't be approaching an issue honestly to start off by calling your game community toxic, and then expecting to succeed by killing it with well, killing your community is the wrong phrase too, or curing your community should be the right phrase, with kindness. Kindness is not going to work on people who are just there to troll and make trouble. You can do a lot of that. Don't get me wrong. It is my default response to a lot of people, to a lot of people that come off hostile, but it won't work all the time, every time. It's not a cure-all. So we need to tap this one more time. Do I want to play this? This will work. Yep, we're good. We've got an all victory here. Just here. And then we activate this, and this, and this. And before I can even click everything, there we go. We made it up to gold tier 4. And if Kit Fox is the community manager of Boyfriend Simulator, that's like a single player game, so the community you're talking about is your forum and people who are hyped about your game. Yeah, for Boyfriend Dungeon is the name of it. She does seem to have a degree in sociology, which somewhat makes her qualified, depending on where she got the degree and how realistic and valid that degree is. I wouldn't be surprised though if it isn't much of an accreditation as you would think, because getting college degrees these days are pretty useless, and I have certainly met plenty of people who've gotten bachelor's, master's, and even PhDs in certain fields, and they're still complete idiots. There's a big difference in some people from being able to study and pass tests and being able to actually implement the knowledge that they allegedly learned. Let's not put that on the field. Yeah, well, we could put it on the field. We're gonna risk it. We're gonna put that on the field right now, because it'll be a couple of turns before I can play this anyways. That solves that problem. Next, we have a game on Steam called First Contact, which looks like it is a kind of MS Paint, low effort puzzle game around the theme of making first contact with aliens, I guess. It's just not visually polished enough to be interesting. They want $6.99 for this, and it's English only, and it has 14 achievements, which is slightly suspicious. But yeah, definite lack of visual polish. Let's see. This next article is a little bit spicy, so I wanted to look at it first before we showed off. Red Dead Redemption has gotten a hot coffee mod, and Take-Two, once it's gone, it apparently breaks the code of conduct. So, in that same aspect, I don't know if it's actually called the hot coffee mod or not for Red Dead Redemption. A mod that changes the game drastically enough that there are sex. You can simulate a sex scene, and without the video playing, that was an ad playing. Yeah, you can see here. They seem like they're mostly fully clothed, at least in what's being shown here. But I imagine there's some other mod out there that would resolve that issue too. There we go. But wasn't there already in the brothels, wasn't there already nudity in Red Dead Redemption? So all this really is doing is changing what would have probably been somewhat of a fade out into an actual, the camera stays and the animations show and play. And this video that's 10 minutes long does not show anything. It is a rather deceptive thumbnail, and it shows a whole bunch of footage of older games. So yeah. It's understandable though, that considering there was so much trouble around the hot coffee mod, it is totally understandable that Take-Two Interactive would not want another hot coffee mod to get talked about, because it will just remind people of that whole incident before. And frankly, the response there was wrong. Because it would have been a different time, certainly, but the right response for the hot coffee mod when it first came out would have been to say that content, the content that you're seeing and the way you're seeing it was put in by a person unaffiliated with us who I guess maybe at that time you might even say illegally modified our software. Is this the pet? Yeah. And then you could kind of be a little bit generous in your response and say, well, we appreciate the enthusiasm and the creativity of this unaffiliated person. We are in no way endorsing or authorizing or allowed this to happen. Part of the problem with the hot coffee mod is story was it was, I think, inaccurately reported that those that the parts or all of the aspects were in the game by default and then hidden and not completely removed. So it was harder to make that argument, although they probably should have just made that argument anyways, even if it wasn't true. Is this indestructible? No, but it does have first strike. That has first strike too, and that has first strike, so no problem at all. So I'm gonna end up dying very quickly here. Guess I could attack. Wouldn't do me any good. Moving on, Gamma Sutra has an article here. Around 20 employees have been laid off at the mobile studio Kixeye. Never heard of it. Let's see. They made an MMO product called Kingdom Maker. Yeah. They made War Commander, Battle Pirates, Vega Conflict, and War Commander Rogue Assault. When you have 4 games and all the names are completely forgettable and unrecognizable amongst any thousands of clones, that's a problem. Unsurprising that they would be doing bad. Next we have a game on Steam here called Pixel Pile-Up Party, which looks like it's a collection of Game Boy games that at the very least are smart enough to give you a color mode. Like if you want to play a game that looks like it's in Game Boy, that should be a mode, not a not the default. The problem though is this really is a collection of 4 mini games that they're selling for $12.74. It's way too expensive. Even if you do have nostalgia for Game Boy games, like go back and play real Game Boy games, don't pay a ridiculous amount. And these games as they're being depicted make me wonder if there is much to them at all, or if it isn't just 4 single screen mini games. Yeah. So just way too expensive. Let's just leave it at that. That's all about that. Gamma Sutra has an article here. Scottish studio Tag Games will expand its workforce by 50% in 2020, which they could have 1 employee or 2 employees and be planning on hiring 1 more. They probably do have more people looking at what they made though. They made Pocket Mortys, which is the Adult Swim game, CSR2, Angry Birds Action, and Prison Architect Mobile. So there's some recognizable things there. It says Flying in Haste, and it would save me a little bit of damage. Alright, now that's just gonna die anyway, so we might as well sacrifice that. So yeah, the idea of Pocket Mortys, I played that for a brief time on my cell phone. It was basically a Pokemon game with, I want to say Futurama, but that's the wrong show. Rick and Morty characters. And they have done a decent job of continuing to support it. Every time there's a new Rick and Morty episode, they do update the game with 2 or 3 new collectibles. There's not a lot to the game. It does definitely feel like a clone of Pokemon 1 compared to Pokemon Shield and Sword. Alright, well this guy's first. This guy's first strike. This guy's gonna get stronger. Still doesn't have first strike. Alright. So block this guy. I can't block this guy. I have to block this guy. So then it tells me I have to sacrifice this. Which tells me I should have sacrificed that earlier. As well do this because I'm not going to make it that far anyways. Might as well do this. Don't have enough mana to do that. No attacks in turn, let him win. Gamma City has an article here. The UK studio Ultimatum Games is shut down after 4 years. I don't know if any of this would have anything to do with Brexit, frankly. No. The company was run by Shahid Ahmad. He stepped down as the Sony Computer Entertainment's European's head of strategic content in 2015. And unfortunately, I guess he didn't really succeed too well. He worked as a support studio for Sega, Creative Assembly, and Smilegate, and helped create Virtual Reality, a mobile title designed to challenge Muslim stereotypes in collaboration with the charity Islamic Relief. So, not super surprising that didn't succeed. Because that is extremely niche as far as a video game to make. Like, you really can't make a political message in your first video game that you come out with, or make a company that is entirely built around sending a political message. And countering Islam, Muslim stereotypes is definitely going to be a political message to a lot of people, let's face it. Whereas, had he run a company like the developer of Children of Morta, that's a Islamic company, for lack of a better description, in an Islamic country, and they just made a good game, and Children of Morta was well received. So now would be a good time, if they wanted to make a political message, to come out and say, hey, we're the developers of Children of Morta, we're glad you liked our game. We'd like to just say, hey, we're an Islamic company, and we'd like to say this, and this about that. I don't know exactly what you want to say. Probably keep it short and concise and to the point, and not overgeneralize, because any inaccuracy or any generalization is going to just be rejected by the people that you might be trying to win to your side. And you're going to have a level of honesty in the things you say also, and not try and glance over or propagandize the situation. And that dangerously puts me close to a religious argument in a video game stream, so I'm gonna move on. We have a game on Steam called Nonogram Animal Griddlers. I curated a lot of the games today, but I left this on just to say, yeah, we're still getting bad games and anagram games. $4.99, English only. Not something that's going to make it to the follow list, obviously. And I really did hit just a real slowdown at some points. I guess I was just playing more today. Let's see. We have a game on Steam called Zyla and the Shrooms of Doom, which looks like a platforming game. Unlike a lot of platforming games, it looks like there's actual animation here. There is a bit of an annoyance here. It seems like you get these explosion particles every time you shoot. But I've seen 3 different types of enemies. It seems like it takes a couple shots to shoot them. It seems like you may have to switch your colors to match the enemy's colors. That might be part of the game. $4.99. They say it's like a Hat in Time. I would disagree with that. English only. This looks like it's been worked on enough. This isn't a low effort experience. It's got a nice UI. So I'm going to put it on the follow list. But there still definitely are some mini scenarios where I wouldn't want to play that game. Particularly if it is just going to be platforming and switching the colors of your bullets. I guess I need to attack with this. Next we have a game on Steam called Mini Transport, which looks like a transport pattern simulator game. Maybe a strategy game too. It's not visually interesting with just a bunch of lines and circles. It's 99 cents, English and Chinese. Yeah, basically a low effort Chinese game. If I could just get one more swamp, should be alright. Well, I guess we'll go ahead and attack with these two. Let's see. Gamatsu has an article here for the Switch. Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Rescue Team DX Japanese overview trailer and TV commercial. By the name, you would have thought that this was an old game, but it actually is a new Pokemon game side quest. Mystery Dungeon. I think there's been previous Mystery Dungeon games though. I think these are the games where you play as just like Pikachu, and you go into dungeons and do dungeon grinding, dungeon crawling without a human and without a lot of the RPG elements that would come around a regular Pokemon game. I feel like I'm saying and a lot today. Probably say it a lot in general and should refocus on saying it less. Gamatsu has an article here. The Street Cat's Tale for Switch launches March 12th. It looks alright, but not anything special. Looks like it's probably a cell phone game, RPG Maker game. I don't know, there's something interesting about this though. The idea of playing as a street cat in kind of an RPG experience does have more interest than just playing as some kind of fantasy creature or some fantasy humanoid in an RPG. Like this next game is tag sexual content, so we'll see. I think they've gone out of their way in this case to blur out the images with putting a plant in front. So there we go. We've got a game on Steam called Pretty Nico, which Nico means cat in Japanese, although often in anime it means cat girl. Here's some of the plant-based censorship they seem to be employing. Although I don't know if there was actual nudity in the game, and I don't know if this isn't exactly how you see the content in general. It's a slide puzzle game for 74 cents, discounted, English only, and then 100 achievements with letters in for the achievements, which clearly means it's a achievement game. Although, in all fairness, as an achievement game, at least they didn't skimp out on the anime girl art style. It's pretty decent. Looks like they either licensed or somehow otherwise acquired the similar art from the same creator. So I just have to keep on attacking here, I guess. Next we have a game on Steam called Hungry Tea Party, which looks like a kind of ridiculous Alice in Wonderland, Tea Party, Mad Hatter animation style. Very unique though, dark and spooky. But I don't know if there's really a game here. They're saying it's a point-and-click horror game, but it seems like it's gonna ask you a few questions and maybe that's it. Riddles. It is free to play and it's English only, so I guess you check it out. It's 20 or 30 minutes, and what I would like to see is if this developer makes something else, because this art style and this concept certainly could be expanded upon. American McGee being the only one to have like a dark twist on Alice in Wonderland, probably not enough, considering how long it's been since the last Alice, American McGee, Alice in Wonderland game has been, and he's trying to make a new one, and he's in negotiation, and he's in Kickstarter, but American McGee is also working out of China, and there is definitely some question as to whether you'll actually be able to make a product, or how big of a product you'd be able to make in general. I can kind of save the day if I can just get one more swap. Gamatsu has an article here. Genshin Impact details Xiao, X-I-A-O, a new character with a tattoo-like symbol on his or her arm. I'm not even sure. Might be a girl, might be a guy. Let's see. Genshin Impact, I guess the big piece of information to take from that is coming out worldwide for the PS4, Switch, PC, iOS, and Android in 2020. So it'll be at PAX East, and I guess we'll get more information instead of just a character highlight, which typically I try to avoid just covering character highlights, as they tends not to be that great. How did one of my cards get cloned like that? That's weird. Or did I just have two of these because I crafted more? Well, I'm probably gonna lose here. See, what we have to do is block that. That'll just save me one turn. That's about all I can do. We can do that. We can do that. But that's about it. Had I eaten this food, I might have been able to stretch it out for another turn, but probably not, because he's gonna do 7 damage. Next, we have a game on Steam called Super Foosball. We got up to gold tier 4, but I'm not sure we're gonna get another victory. Let's give it one more time. Like, worst case scenario, I only need 2 more victories to get the max amount of experience, and I'm not getting the max amount of experience on a daily case anyways. Anyways, Super Foosball. Foosball is an interesting idea. I don't know if it's an interesting idea in the digital world. Seems like that is all this game really is. It's free, so I guess the price is right, in English only. But it seems to have no controller support also, which is a problem. So I ruined myself in that last game just because I didn't have three swamps to start with. It's super important, and I keep forgetting this, and I'm not learning my lesson fast enough. But clearly, it is super important to have at minimum 3 swamps in your starting hand, even if you have to mulligan multiple times to reach that level. Do it. Next we have a game on Steam called Maritime Hegemony, carrier travel, and then a bunch of Chinese characters, I guess. I don't know if this is supposed to be a Chinese aircraft carrier or a different country's aircraft carrier. They might all kind of look the same. English was not supported, $4.99, Chinese only. Looks to me like a pretty low effort Chinese game, very possibly for military propaganda or militaristic propaganda. So we talked about this earlier, but OpenCritic has an article here. PlayStation, Oculus, and Facebook will be skipping out on GDC 2020. So not just PAX East is being affected, GDC.
Better watch your back from here on out.
Oh, I screwed up there. That was a mistake. That was a big mistake. Like, I should have sacrificed that clearly with the Richard Owen. And instead I got it exiled.
I had guild business to attend to anyway.
So it's fairly realistic and understandable that they skip GDC though. It's not particularly a big conference for end users anyways. And the conversations and the speeches that are given at GDC could easily be pre-recorded and just put on a YouTube channel, much like the TED Talks happen. GDC probably would be better if they had more of a TED Talk approach and style to it, where they scheduled a person to give a speech, and then they had like a one-day event where multiple people gave speech at one small theater venue. They could potentially have only like 100 people sitting in it, and frankly the audience might as well be a fake audience of people not even interested. And then those pre-recorded elements and speeches get put online, and that's where the vast majority of the views would come from. And game developers who are frankly should be too busy to go to something like the Game Developers Conference could just watch the videos. Also, it opens up a door that needs to be opened up, where we stop having these conventions where game developers just go and hang out with their friends and get drunk and have a vacation and have a party, because that's not the stated goal of GDC or E3 or any of that, but that's a lot of what happens. Like, let's see, a game called The Dungeon of Nalubek, the Amulet of Chaos, is going to release for PC in the summer of 2020. Felicia Day, the actress who at best has had mediocre success and was put up as one of the creators of Geek and Sundry, but really doesn't seem like she actually had any authority there. That was a complete and total lie, and doesn't seem to have any affiliation with it. She's going to be voicing a character in it, which is not super surprising because she gained her...
Am I dematerializing? Huh.
Interesting. She was famous for her YouTube series a YouTube series she was in called, I think, Guild Quest, where she played a character who played a lot of World of Warcraft,
Put me out front.
and comedic events would happen amongst this guild of people, guild of weirdos.
I had guild business to attend to anyway.
And she's been in some other things that were created by other people who were in that show, but not too much else. She showed up in a couple episodes of Supernatural, a CW show, a couple of episodes of The Magicians, a sci-fi channel show. That is cable tier actress. No big success there. Overhyped because Geek and Sundry was in part from the Nerdist Network. She got a lot of hype and a lot of push, and my perspective clearly in retrospect was way off on what was being popular amongst nerds and what was an up and coming success. I was getting advertised to and sold to, and very possibly I still am getting advertised to and sold to.
You won. This time.
And just still don't see it. I definitely was in the throes of getting a lot of my information, which still I do get a lot of my information from outside sources that have a vested interest in advertising to me versus getting information from talking to like peers or friends that play video games. Like I really don't have a lot of those conversations. So a lot of Giant Bomb, a lot of Tested.com, a lot of Geek and Sundry stuff. A lot of YouTubers nowadays. So at best I try to diversify the YouTubers, but yeah, who's to say if any of them are actually accurately depicting what's going on either.
But not forever.
Let me double check to make sure we're still getting audio. Yes, we are. The game itself, though, did look slightly interesting. So when it comes out, I guess we'll get more information. No reason to get too hyped about it at all until it is actually out. Next we have a game on Steam called Bloody Ending, which looks like a low-effort 8-bit RPG Maker game for $1.59 discounted English and French. Sacrifice. And do this. I think we already talked about this, but I'll just say it again. The Scottish studio Tag Games will expand its workforce by 50% in 2020. I think we already said that, but maybe that was a different company. As we're approaching the second quarter, I wouldn't be surprised if we get a lot of people that say they plan on hiring people, and we'll see if it's true or not when it happens. Gamatsu, I think, has the same story here. Sony Interactive and Facebook canceled the GDC presence over the coronavirus concerns. But also, I think it is fair to say that there probably weren't too many presentations that were going to be shown from Sony or Facebook and Oculus at GDC anyways. Typically the presentations are from individual creators and often indie creators, not big companies. Maybe GDC was trying to entice big companies, but they immediately
Better
lost
watch
them.
your back from here on out.
Oh, this is terrible. This is the worst. He's got a decent strategy here. To just ruin everything you're doing. Games Radar has that same story. Felicia Day lends her voice to cheeky RPG Dungeon of Naebec. Like here is the trailer. You can skip through this. It's being made by Dear Villagers. I think I've heard that company before. But yeah, definitely kind of feels like it's a dungeon crawler. And nothing else. We'll see. Let's see how well that works as a game later on. Let's see. Now, Tech Raptor has a different article here around the coronavirus, which is becoming a big center point on stories. Coronavirus games made by developers for educational purposes, all of which probably are low effort asset flips, pretending to be educational games. I don't know how many educational games you really even need to tell people what they need to know to avoid getting infected from a virus. Don't eat strange, raw, wild animals. Wash your hands thoroughly. That's pretty much all you can tell people. There isn't any special element or anything else to avoid. Cover your mouth when you cough and sneeze. That's a big thing that Chinese people don't do. Culturally, not covering your mouth when you cough and sneeze is hurting them as a country and as a people more than anything else. TechRaptor has an article here. This one's interesting. A review bomb apparently was combated by fans for the game Kunai. Let's see. It appears to have been the result of one dedicated user exploiting a flaw in Metacritic's registration and voting process. So
I hope you said you
I don't
won.
know how you can have a review bomb of one person and not just have Metacritic figure that out real quick and remove all of those reviews from that one IP. Let's see. Kunai, from what I heard, was a fine game. It's rated mostly positive on Steam, has an 83 Metacritic score on Metacritic, and the top critics average of 75 on OpenCritic. The user score was at 1.7, and the company started investigating. And apparently this has been a problem that Metacritic has had for a while. Apparently people are using temporary email sites to review bomb games. Why you would waste your time to review bomb a game, and particularly that game, makes very little sense. And what they seem to have done is they have gone to Twitter to tell people, and it seems like if we take TechRaptor on its face value and assume that they investigated, it seems like there was a review bomb, but it would also be very easy for people to say their game is getting review bombed and then head to Twitter and try and get people to review the game higher. And at this point, that is exactly seems to be the case. Is one person may have tried to wreck the reviews, but now you're getting counter manipulation in the other direction, with people probably putting fake, disingenuous 100 scores to counter 0 rating scores. So this is kind of a great example where if a game company was getting review bombed, they should just be silent about it and talk with the review score aggregation site first, and not go to the public and complain about it, because 9 times out of 10, if you claim your game is being review bombed, a lot of people are going to come back and say no, it actually isn't, and you're just being a whiner. We've seen that many times as far as movies, where Star Wars movies, DC Marvel movie, mostly DC movies, are getting low reviews, and the people who made the movies are claiming that they're being review bombed when they really aren't. And it does not work out well for them. Let's see. Next we have a game here called Match Solitaire, which is just free cell, or 4 columns. I guess that's not free cell. That's a different type of solitaire. It's kind of nicely polished, but it is just a solitaire game. It's $3.99, English full audio. It says it has 1,000 levels, which is probably not enough for that type of game. It should be kind of a random generator, infinite number of levels. Way more than 1,000. Even if they're the first 1,000 are curated, you should be able to randomize it later. Yep, nothing there. Speaking of Batman, since that's what I'm playing, Arkham Asylum, the logo for WB's Montreal Batman game may have been leaked due to a selfie. So, yeah, they're working on a new Batman game. It's Arkham Origins. Let's see. There's questions about the chronology of this new game and how it ties into the Rocksteady's original series, considering how WB previously worked on the prequel Arkham Origins. But you get a decent amount of origin backstory in Arkham Asylum itself. We should just concede, but this is probably going to be our last game for today. So, like, not much here. It's just a WB and a Batman logo. That doesn't really tell you anything, does it? Since it's a WB studio, I wouldn't be surprised if there were Batman logos all over the place just for fun. That's hardly an informative link. Next we have a game on Steam called Bob Wants to Go Home, which is a low effort RPG game, RPG maker game. We still got a lot of these. $1.49 discounted, English only. And might as well just see. This is taking forever. What's crazy is he's done everything to exile and destroy all of my cards, but he's not really done too much to do damage to me. So, yeah. Probably should just auto pass. Now he's got me down to 10. If I had gotten Bolas Citadel at that point, maybe I could have won, but probably not even then. Next we have a game on Steam called Blindy 2 Dolls Factory, not to be confused with the game series Bindi, which is actually kind of good. This is clearly a dark screenshot syndrome, low effort. I don't even know if you call this an asset flip or if it's just really, really bad 3D modeling. $3.99 English and Russian, with some name confusion in the title just for the cherry on top. TechRaptor has an article, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater documentary Pretending I'm a Superman is coming soon. I don't know how many people who aren't into skating are going to want to watch that, and if you're a video gamer, I don't know how much of a documentary or informative bits of information you can get from the Tony Hawk series of games and the development of the Tony Hawk series of games, when more than likely they're kind of cheaply made, designed to sell a soundtrack and designed to sell to skater fans more than anything else. And a lot of advertisement built into skater games. Next we have a game on Steam called Shining Song Star Nova Idol Empire. That's a mouthful to say the least. It looks like it probably is a Chinese visual novel, if I was to guess, or some kind of weird simulation RPG game. It's $13.49 discounted, and it's English only, which is weird. But yeah, just way too much stuff here, and not visually attractive stuff. Oh. Well, there's no way I'm winning after this turn. TechRaptor has the same articles. PlayStation's PAX East events are cancelled due to the coronavirus. We have another game on Steam called FOS, which looks like it's kind of an 8-bit pixel graphics platformer or adventure game. Doesn't seem like there's too many enemies or much to do here. Yeah, I don't think there's a finished game here. It's early access and it's free to play. It's English and Russian with a bunch of like DLC too. Almost done, and if there are any more games that came out while we were streaming, that's fine. We'll leave that for Monday. See, the crazy thing here is somehow he's not attacking. I don't know why he's not bothering to attack. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Epic Card Game, which looks kind of nice in the art. And I'm always looking for a collectible card game. Like, decent chance this won't succeed because it just won't get player base. That is the problem with any collectible card game that doesn't have a huge amount of support behind it. White Wizard Games, free to play, single online with in-app purchases, and requires a third-party account. We'll put this on the follow list and keep an eye on it, and it's mostly positive right now. Here's a non-article from TechRaptor. Medium Molecules Dreams attracts interest from game design schools. No duh, schools would be interested in just about anything, but the idea of having any kind of class where you teach people how to make games using dreams is insane. And trying to make a game inside of dreams is insane. And from what I hear, take it with a grain of salt, there really isn't enough in dreams, or there really isn't a game at all in dreams. So you're kind of left with little tech demos, little things that are interesting to look at, and a tutorial startup section that's decent to play, but that's about it. There isn't an actual challenger to Unreal
I
or
had
Unity.
guild business to attend to anyway.
This guy's just wasting my time, clearly. Let's just go ahead and concede. I'm tired of playing this guy. Yeah, if you ask me if that game was fun, the answer is no. That was not a fun game. Alright, let's look at pet select. None, none, none. Common, uncommon. Yeah, I guess I just didn't get the pet, which I don't think I was supposed to get the pet, but whatever. We don't have any packs to open. Yeah, that's right. TechRaptor has this final article. Animal Crossing save data recovery restrictions just got worse. One of the handful of downsides of Animal Crossing New Horizons has to do with the way the island works with your Nintendo Switch. Animal Crossing save data recovery was already a glaring issue, and it just got worse. If you didn't watch the direct, you should check it out. Watch the fine print. Animal Crossing Horizons won't have support for cloud saves. And the frequently asked questions. In case of a defective or lost console, Nintendo Switch Online members can only have save data recovered one time due to the loss of a damaged system. Only once. That is ridiculous. Yeah, Nintendo does not know how to do consoles anymore. They really should just drop out of making consoles and just make games. Like the little console ideas are cool, but the back end, I suppose Nintendo could partner with like Microsoft and run some custom version of Windows on their hardware, and then they don't have to run any of the services, and then everything can just be Xbox Live Arcade even on a Nintendo Switch, and you would have a much better scenario there. Right, so here's that game I skipped, Seal Fledged, a daughter raising simulator. From what I've seen before, it's not always just a daughter raising simulator. It seems they have a bit of a mini game and kind of a weird visual novel story it's telling, which would be kind of typical for a daughter raising simulator. But here you're seeing she's getting items and she's going to different places, all over the place. And then you've got some visual novel conversations, and then you've got some kind of almost RPG dungeon encounters. It's kind of all over the place, like almost a match 3 fighting game. So there's definitely a lot here, and it's already on my following list. It's $17.99 discounted, bunch of languages, 49 achievements. Is quite a lot, but not an insane amount. I don't particularly like the animation style. Feels a little flat. Feels like you're not seeing a lot of characters anyways. And sometimes here's a great example: the camera's just zoomed out too much for no reason, and then the animation style shifts to an even lazier animation style later on. Yeah. So there's kind of some glaring flaws that shouldn't be there if you're going to make a game and call it a daughter raising simulator, considering how there are at least half a dozen child raising simulator games out there that already exist. The Princess Maker series in particular, but also a couple others. TechRaptor has a review for it, for the game, and I wanted to look at it in general before we look at the review. Let's see what they gave it. They gave it a 6.0, below average of 7.5. Seal-Fledged, a daughter raising simulator, breaks new ground with its combination of game systems, but hiding critical information from the player is a real drag in the long game. Pros are innovative combat systems, plenty of replayability, vibrant characters with depth, catchy and energetic music. Cons are hidden jobs and training waste time, a lack of in-game information, and stat loss greatly hinders progress. Some of those elements probably are in the early Princess Maker games too. There definitely were things you could do and you didn't really realize they were affecting your stats. And they were kind of implemented in the Princess Maker series, in particular, so that you have to play the game multiple times. And that is kind of the problem with a child raising simulator in general, is that if you want to see all the different endings, you are going to play it much like a visual novel and have to play it multiple times and make save states all over the place. TechRaptor also has this article, 11 Things I'd Like to See in Seal-Fledged. I assume it's Seal-Fledged, or like I wouldn't call that Chell or Chiel, or I don't know how else you would pronounce that. Show the special effects of clothing in the store. Give us the option for cosmetic clothing. Reveal the entire training jobs tree from the beginning. Yeah, that would be very helpful for a lot of people. So if you were going to play this game, you probably would do better to use a walkthrough. Reduce, or better yet, remove the monthly stats decay. Provide players with an explanation for stats effects. Add more weapons as she gets stronger. So you're going to raise this character from being a girl that seems like she's living in a normal world to eventually being a warrior of some sort using guns. Let us play with the battle system more. Release a standalone soundtrack. Add a dash of more romance. Add a dash of romance. Apparently none of that happens. Give us a son as DLC. Continue the adventure someday. So 3 articles from TechRaptor. They're probably hyping up the game. They were probably paid to write articles, but perhaps not paid to write positive articles. And I wouldn't say the 2 articles, or the couple of articles I saw, were actually particularly positive. Let's see. Digital tabletop bundle from Humble Bundle exists, so if you pay $8 or more, you can get Gremlins Inc. and Reigns Her Majesty. I already own 2 of those games. I don't know if I own Gremlins Inc. Pay more than the average of the $6.36. You get Terraforming Mars, Armorello, and For the King. Particularly interesting. And if you pay $10, you get Slay the Spire, which is probably a decent deal for Slay the Spire. I'm not sure if Slay the Spire has DLC that's available for it right now. And then let's just scroll down our Twitter feed just to see if there's any big announcements happening here. Let's see if there's anything of interest. Tim hits 500,000 sales while still being in early access. Interesting. Ruiner is coming to Switch. Not that interesting. There's a game called Anime Girls Loot Box Simulator that came out on Steam. Very not interesting. PAX East next week, they're going to be Double Fine is going to be showing off some games such as Knights and Bikes, demo for Psychonauts 2 and Samurai Gun 2. And don't recognize Samurai Gun 2. The HTC Vive Cosmos expands with more choices for VR headsets. So the Vive is making more VR headsets or something. Free Code Friday from Major Nelson. Payday 2 drills are being removed next week. I think you need the drills to open loot boxes, so they're kind of like keys. So I don't know what they're being replaced with, whether that's a better system or a worse system. The game Dread Out 2 came out on Steam. We'll talk about that on Monday. Chinese gaming and esports industry will get help from the Beijing government. No surprise. Well, that is a little surprising the government would help them, but not a lot, because that is something that they're trying to promote. Speaking of esports, it's barely news because I imagine esports teams get kicked out of esports leagues and groups. And what are they called? When multiple teams are under a certain banner, guilds. They're not called guilds, but that's pretty much what they are. There was a all-female team that was not built well and was put together just as a stunt, basically, and it wasn't the best of female esports players coming together. And so they were added to a guild and played for like a season, maybe two, and played so terribly that they've now been kicked out. And yeah, that is the danger if you're just going to virtue signal and have an all-female team, is that it is going to then ironically look bad when you look worse when you kick them out for not winning. They were betting on the scenario, the highly unlikely scenario, that an all-female team would come in, win the championship, and it would be some like Mighty Ducks style. I don't even think the Mighty Ducks won, but it would have to be some huge underdog story where they won every single challenge, every single battle, and only struggled the minimalist amount. Apparently PewDiePie is back to YouTube, according to YouTube Gaming. No big surprise there. And I was fairly certain he wasn't going to disappear forever. If anything, I think he figured out what he needed to do, and he'll probably do it the same next year also, as he just needs to take a vacation in January and February when his views are going to be the lowest anyways, and then that stops anybody from trying to make an adpocalypse and target him, which is what had happened for the 2 years before that. That is my tinfoil hat conspiracy. Crytek's lawsuit against Star Citizen ends in a settlement. We'll talk about that on Monday. So yeah, the all-female team would have only gotten a good ending had they all won the championship and gone on to long, successful careers and then retired as champions. But of course, that wasn't going to happen. The problem, as I understand it, for a League of Legends team is most of them played supporters that weren't even the right supporters. So there wasn't enough people on the team playing the right character class, and thus they were going to be they were never going to succeed in the first place. I don't think that many of them had worked together enough or trained together enough. And at a certain point, it kind of is just a case of only a young guy, a teenager guy, only a guy in general, and this is just a generalization, is stupid enough and obsessive enough to dream to be an esports player and will put in the time and effort. There's so many other ways and better ways to spend your time, and most females know that there is this self-selection, self-elimination of females in a lot of video game related fields, simply because working as a video game developer sucks, and only guys who are obsessed and kind of crazy will do it. Working as an esports player kind of sucks, and only people who are obsessive and hyper competitive will do it. And so, yeah, there is less of a field of people willing to go through that frustration. Well, that's the end of my Twitter feed. So we are definitely having a problem with the audio cutting out like crazy still. So I'm going to have to order a new microphone. That's going to suck considering I just ordered a new hard drive. Well, that's going to be it for this stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a bunch of links down below. If you want to check out the other games I've covered, there's playlists for every game I've covered, so check out the playlist tab on my channel. And if you want to support me, which would be very, very appreciated, there's a link to Patreon, or you could friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.